I mean, I'm very upset with the TechIsland folks for making me go up after big shoes that I have to fill now after the chief. That was incredible. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me fine, yeah? Yeah? All right. So, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Faris. Absolute honor and pleasure to be standing in front of you here today. I'm the COO at a company called LogiX. And what we do is we're a data and AI innovation company based out of Dubai. We work primarily in Dubai and Saudi Arabia. And what we do is we turn very ambitious, bold ideas into high-impact AI and innovation programs and initiatives that are measurable in the UAE and across Saudi Arabia. I come from the city of Jeddah, which is by the seaside in Saudi. I live in the very, very, very hot, very sandy, dry city and capital of Saudi called Riyadh. So I'm very happy to be here in Limassol in this beautiful weather. So what do? Every day, I help organizations build the data foundations needed to leverage and enable and govern AI use cases every single day. And we do it in a way that helps them scale responsibly, securely, and practically. We also launched an online platform to democratize access to GPU and AI compute power. And if you're interested about that, please come talk to me after this session. I hold a PhD in AI from King's College London, UK. And much of the work that I do day to day is to bridge the gap between cutting-edge AI ideas and concepts and real-world execution, especially in complex and policy-driven environments like Saudi and the UAE. Now, today, I'm not here to talk about the promise or the future of AI, right? I'm here to tell you about what happens when you actually try to deploy and scale artificial intelligence. We've made mistakes. There's a lot of things we could have done better. We've learned a lot of lessons, but we do have some good success stories as well. Now, let's make sure that we all have the same shared definition of AI, right? For us, when we talk about AI, we're talking about building systems that are smart. Smart enough to reason, smart enough to predict, right? And to obviously smart enough to learn. And the fuel for that intelligence is data. Now, in practice, we mostly care and talk about three kinds of data that we see and use every day. The first one is predictive AI, right? Demand forecasting, optimizing operations, fraud detection, all of this is stuff that we see day to day and use day to day. The second is computer vision, where computers see, and we already have beautiful applications for that in traffic, civil, and logistics today. And thirdly is Gen AI. I'm sure you've heard of Gen AI and use it every day. And it's AI that generates content, right? Written content, visual content, code. Now, and translation has always been Gen AI. This is the part that we always forget. But the last one, Gen AI, is getting a lot of traction right now, right? And it's getting a lot more popular. And the reason for that is because it's allowing everybody access to a technology that was once only exclusive to the biggest tech companies, the gigantic financial institutions, and the mega corporates, right? So why am I here to talk about Saudi, and why is Saudi investing now in AI? Now, AI in Saudi has no longer become an optional frontier. It has become part of the national state-backed strategy. It was determined by the Saudi government to be a necessity to be at the forefront of AI. So what did they do? They launched a vision called Vision 2030. This is a national strategy where they deem digital transformation to be a pillar, a base of this vision, and established something called the Saudi Data and AI Authority, a whole government department to focus as a regulator for AI and data. Today, they're in charge of building the regulatory frameworks, the regulatory infrastructure, and all of the rules and regulations needed to allow public and private sector to deploy and scale AI responsibly. Number two is Saudi is very young. 60% of the population is under 35. Believe it or not, so am I. I might look a bit older. And obviously, another really important thing about Saudi is that it's very rich in, well, obviously natural resources and financial capital, but in massive untapped data sets. We have always been very good at keeping our data and storing it. We're just not very good at leveraging it, right? From mobility to healthcare to commerce, we have the raw materials, the oil, to build world-class AI. And finally, we are investing a lot in infrastructure, and we're trying to convince all of the big companies to come to Saudi to start and build and incentivize them to build AI and data infrastructure. Google Cloud has launched in Saudi. Alibaba Cloud has launched in Saudi. 3 days ago, I was on stage at the Huawei Cloud event, their kickoff in Saudi as well. And obviously, this is helping us localize and accelerate adoption of AI. Now, obviously, having these tools locally mean that Saudi innovators can build and deploy AI at scale without having to rely on black box infrastructure that's available abroad. And while all of this might sound like a very long-term plan, it's playing out in real time. True story, I had to update the script yesterday because I don't know if you folks saw, but President Donald Trump was in Saudi a few days ago. Who did he bring with him? Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, Elon Musk, I'm sure I don't need to introduce him. And they're all in Saudi, and with other stakeholders in the kingdom as well, talking about the future AI and tech and how to invest in this sector in Saudi. And literally just the day before the president arrived, the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Public Investment Fund, announced the founding of a new company called Humane. Who saw that? Did anyone see that? They did a huge event. And what they're doing is they're trying to signal a significant leap in their adoption and their commitment to investing and building AI in government. What they're doing is they're going to be deploying infrastructure, building Arabic-first large language models, and building AI applications for Saudi and the Saudi market. So the ambition is real. We can all see that. But that kind of ambition works when policy and practice move together. And that's why, late last year, the Federation of Chambers of Commerce in Saudi established the Saudi National Committee for AI. Now, I'm very proud. I was invited to be part of the founding, as a founding member on this committee. And we focus on 5 key areas. First, we work with the regulator, SDAIA, the Saudi Data and AI Authority, to make sure that the private sector AI efforts support the vision, right? Second, we make sure that these businesses, the private sector, has a seat at the table to discuss how regulation is shaped to support private sector initiatives. We also make sure that these public and private sector entities work together, collaborate, and innovate. And of course, this goes without saying, we contribute to the national conversation about their ethical responsibilities in the use of AI. But a major barrier to adoption in Saudi is data residency and compliance, as the chief scientist was mentioning earlier. Sovereignty of data is important, and it's not about access and control. It's not about access and security, it is also about control. In regulated sectors like healthcare and education, and obviously government services, storing data abroad is risky. So this is where deploying local infrastructure becomes very critical. And by offering local compute power and AI compute power, we can deploy Saudi-based language models that we don't need to worry about sending data overseas or leaking. They stay secure and under our control. At LogiX, today, we're setting up LLMs for our clients that are built in Saudi using open source technology with their knowledge bases, with the technology, with the goals and mandates that they have in Arabic and English to solve very local problems. And obviously, this combination of local infrastructure, open source models, and local expertise is how we avoid depending on these black box systems. But one of the biggest pitfalls we've had, and I'm sure you might have experienced this as well, is over-relying on imported AI models and solutions that were designed for mainly, if we're honest, the West Coast, right? So, or rather the Western world. A model that works beautifully in California will completely fail in Riyadh, especially when it counters a scanned Saudi ID or a local dialect voice note or a shopping pattern that doesn't exist, right? I'll give you a good example of a shopping pattern. We used an unsupervised learning model for one of our customers, a big supermarket chain in Saudi. And this model was built on data that was in the US. Who here knows the month of Ramadan? Everyone has heard of the month of Ramadan, right? In Ramadan, before the beginning of Ramadan, the sale of dates, the date fruit, spike up like crazy. For us, this is normal. For the model, this was a data error, right? So we've had tools and models that we've deployed incredibly work when you're doing tests and demos, but they break when they're exposed to the cultural nuances. Like, I'll give you another example. Dates in Arabic are written a bit differently. We have our own Islamic calendar. So what you're doing is you're looking at cultural behavior, both legal and operational and regulatory, that you need to take into account when you're deploying AI solutions focused on serving a very small number of people that all share the same cultural aspect. If you're deploying American models in Cyprus, you will fail and see the same problem. You're basically blindly importing AI systems without the contextual adaptation that's needed for this region. And obviously, we've seen organizations, especially government entities, spend millions on solutions that they ultimately have to throw out. So that's why we've made a shift at LogiX as well. We've started investing in bilingual model development that focused on the region and the Middle East. Even Saudi and the UAE have different needs. And look, Gulf specific, absolutely. There are these tools that are being developed by some entities. And this is where I believe every single country needs, or every single region needs to focus on building their own suite of tools and AI products that adapt for them. Now, of course, systems are half the story, right? People matter a lot more. So as much as we build for the present, we also have to think about the future. Because if we want Saudi to be an AI powerhouse, we can't just focus on government and business adoption. We need to make sure that the next generation is ready. And we believe that AI readiness starts early. I look funny there, don't I? But that's what I look like in my Saudi attire, right? So our sister company, Beyond, had the pleasure of running AI for kids boot camps for free for public schools in Jeddah and Riyadh. And I can tell you, it is an absolute shock to walk into these classrooms and start teaching kids from 6 to 16 and seeing that they know 70% of what's already on there. Every single time we run this class, we have to make it harder. We have to make it more advanced. But this is super exciting because what this tells you is that AI is no longer just for the PhDs like me and the engineers like you. It's for everyone, right? And the government is also investing into a lot of programs that do this as well. For example, Sedaya, the regulator, I oversaw a project for them where they trained and certified over 1,000 Saudi nationals to become AI and machine learning experts. The government covered the cost of this entire program, including the exams and certifications. And as a result of that, you're getting a lot of local talent that you're building up to support and become the next generation of visionaries to build and adopt the use of AI in either public or private sector. Now, teaching kids about AI is one thing, but when we're building real AI systems, the stakes are much higher. So we also have to focus on something important, ethics, and the ethical and responsible use of AI. So we have dozens of examples of AI implementations that we've worked on. I can share all of them with you today, but I have 2 minutes left. But none of it matters if we don't use AI responsibly. So our Sedaya, again, the Data and AI Authority, they launched something called the AI Ethics Badge Initiative. They went to every single public and private entity and said, here, fill this form to say if you're using AI, to tell your users and your customers and your stakeholders that you have thought about their data and how you're using AI in your own systems, especially when you're processing data that falls under the regulations of data authorities like GDPR. In Saudi, we have one called PDPL. And there are 5 levels as well. So now you have all of these companies trying to compete and all of these government entities. There's aware, which is the weakest badge, I will say, and there's visionary, which means you are at the forefront of thinking about the ethical and responsible use of AI. And the criteria covers really important core principles: fairness, transparency, privacy, reliability and explainability. You want to know what these models, they're basing their decisions on what kind of data. And obviously at LogiX, we've started aligning ourselves and our internal AI development processes with these ethical guidelines, not just to stay compliant, but because in the kingdom, trust is just as important as innovation. And if we want AI to be accepted, we have to build it on a foundation of trust. And I just want to leave you with a closing thought. AI is no longer the future. It's the infrastructure of tomorrow's economy. And just like we first localized telecommunications, and then, well, electricity, and then we localized telecommunications, and both have become embedded in everything that we have and do every day, AI will be embedded in everything that we have and do every day. And just like we localized telecoms, and just like we localized electricity, we must now localize AI. So at LogiX, we continue to build, we continue to work, and in Saudi, we continue to hopefully and proudly and with intent build trustworthy, long-lasting, and high-impactful AI policy. Thank you so much.